Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
The side of the federal building has been blown off, Jesse.
They believe they were part of a CIA project called MK Ultra.
Just like a segment of society that is not living in reality.
In a certain sense, we're kind of a little bit more Israel's vassal state.
There are police chiefs facilitating prostitution networks.
Do you understand? It's all in your head. It's your move.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? It's me and Austin, and we're here with another morning dump. This is a co-product today, the old underclass podcast and the No Way Jose podcast here today. Yeah, we're ready to get into it. Okay, let me fix it. I forgot to add in the little background. It's both of us today, so we're doing Already Dead colors. Hell yeah! So cool. That's the vibe today. I was happy to hear the intro though. I was looking forward to having you back on. It gives an excuse to play that. It's been a while since I've heard that. That one's a bop.
Dude, I love it. I really do. It sets the morning off just right, honestly. How you been doing, brother? It's been a few days.
Doing all right. I'm looking forward to having you today. I think it's probably perfect timing. What is today? Today's Sunday. Me and you are going back on Tinfoil Hat on Wednesday, so this is good. I mean, we had really talked to Grand Game that we were going to spend like weeks prior, like cooking in the kitchen, working on recipes and stuff. But now we have a few days. It's crunch time, so we have. I'm not going to be here for the morning dump tomorrow, so I guess maybe, I don't know what your deal is on Tuesday. So we have maybe on Tuesday, maybe we'll do another group one together. But it works out because whatever, I've been on my own. I've been in solace, just it's soaking up things associated with our theme. Yeah, you have too. You just dropped a 4-hour podcast. I would say that's probably in the same thread since it does connect it back around to the Process Church. Spoiler, that comes about 3 hours deep in the 4-hour podcast.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of works. We're both, and now we're gonna I'm gonna bring you along with me. We're gonna go back through. This will be good. You've gone down the Dutroux rabbit hole before though, so this will be just jogging your memory. Because now we're doing a big thread today, which is like kind of really bringing it all together. The Dutroux to Gladio connections. Yesterday was pretty. It connected to Haig, which I feel like you've talked about before, but I was like, damn, dude. Motherfucking Latinus, that dude who made the WNP, the fucking oh yeah, just his mom just casually be like, oh yeah, he's homies with Haig.
Right.
Fucking wait, what? The United States Haig? Fucking supposedly was a DIA fucking agent from the jump.
Especially the way
I had to look up DIA midstream. I was like, oh, that's a fucking American agency? What the fuck?
Right. Dude, but especially the way that Alexander Haig really ties into. I read this Alex Constantine article that was referring to Mae Brussels, really her work centering around Operation Chaos, and essentially how Chaos entered this hyper-operational phase, coincident with Nixon's election to office, obviously. So it was interesting, though, because it essentially lays out this reality of the Spawn Ranch, being essentially owned by these paperclip Nazis, right? And that effectively there was this, there were explicit orders essentially to neutralize segments of society, including, of course, the restless youth around the Vietnam conflict. And so the special services staff in like 1969, they were like entered this hyper operational phase. And apparently, this Spawn Ranch, of course, the backdrop for movies made by, Tom Mix and William Hart and John Mac Brown and all these super famous old Western cowboys and shit. But still, parts of Howard Hughes's The Outlaw were shot there as well. Now, I didn't realize there was a direct connection to Howard Hughes at Spawn Ranch, but it's interesting that especially because the ranch has another claim to historical significance, of course. It apparently, next to George Spawn's property, stretched the Krupp Ranch, which was owned by one of the wealthiest families in Nazi Germany, a ranking sponsor of Hitler's aggression and its accompanying atrocities. And it goes into this whole, basically, this just very interesting take on how some of course, the Manson murders were orchestrated, but still how you have these really prominent officials within the Nixon administration itself, including Alexander Haig, who are directly tied in with what was occurring at Spawn Ranch and the neighboring property, which I had no idea that there was a connection there. But anyway, hold on, I need a drink.
Man, these rich elites in their weirdness, which we do have, we may get into today, or maybe this will be saved for like when I come back on Tuesday. But we have I don't know if you've been following along with the weirdness of. I know there were multiple people who got mad at me for covering on the show because we did it for like 2 days. This was kind of a big deal. But I found it very odd. I don't know if you've been following the smut of the Ashley St. Clair case with Elon Musk. It's okay. It sounds like you on surface level it does seem smut, but then you look into it and then you start like extrapolating, thinking about it. You keeping in mind the players involved. One being the richest man in the world, also who's like kind of essentially almost being the right hand man of the current head of the administration. It is also, and then Ashley St. Clair herself is no slouch if you really think about her position in the narrative game. Like she's like essentially the what's the term, like the token hot chick at the Babylon Bee. Like that's which is kind of a weird nexus of like conservatism, Christianity, comedy, all different things. So it's kind of a weird spot. So just the fact that this guy, and then you start looking into his, like, a lot of us knew his weirdness with his his kids and his multiple baby mamas and stuff. And it's like, but then it just kind of shined a light on it and then gave us an excuse to look into it more. Makes you wonder, like, what is up with these fucking people? There was a minute where we thought maybe that this dude might be literally IVFing all these broads and presenting them to business agreements. Apparently, this dude proposed to Nicole Shanahan. Like to be fair, that was like reporting by I believe like Vanity Fair or something. So I don't know. I mean, to the degree you take that credible, but their reporting was that apparently he had offered to Nicole Shanahan and she politely refused.
What the fuck?
And so like the idea that the point is that this guy is a guy that's out here like literally spreading his seed amongst seems to be prominent women in different areas. Like, none of the women, I believe what his first wife ended up like even his first wife I think ended up being is what either a co-CEO or did some major part in his business. One of the women he knocked up was like a coworker, which I guess that's probably the lowest, like so far as like a rank, like I guess elite or whatever, class, lowest class. And then you have like Grimes, who I guess was like apparently she was a big deal before even getting knocked up by Elon. I didn't know shit about her, but so she was using the music scene. Then you have Ashley St. Clair. So it is just kind of like, what is going on here? Like, why is this, trying to, can you imagine, like, if you're thinking of it like in an influence type way, like, what, spreading your seed on the level of like, I don't know. There's a reason why like old royalty did that shit. Instituting that in the modern day as the richest man, if you're trying to, solidify your, I don't know, I guess rules maybe being a little bit dramatic, but, I don't know, your influence. I don't know. I feel like it could probably go a long ways.
Priority, right?
Huh?
At the Zorro Ranch, Epstein's priority was essentially in this like sort of transhumanist, eugenics sort of agenda, right? He was definitely attempting to spread his seed. He had like, a stable of women he was attempting to impregnate, right? And at all times too. Like he was legitimately like, it was very strange, but clearly that is a priority of some of these individuals who swim in the similar circles, right? Which clearly, say whatever you want, but I do believe that Elon is compromised within that same network. only due to the fact that you have so many clear connections, not only the Edge Foundation, right, with Epstein being the number one priority donor to the foundation itself, and then having them not just attend once or twice, but like legitimately reattending over and over, and then of course, like I just think when you point to what did he just threatened, like we're going to use
Oh, the drone strike thing.
drones against
Yeah,
cartels or
yeah,
something.
which was bizarre, a bizarre move.
Very
Yeah, we
strange.
covered that. Yeah, that was when, and even then, technically, I guess it wasn't true. I guess the change in legal classification of them still doesn't allow us to. I mean, it is
Mhm.
concerning that it gets to that point. I mean, obviously, technically, they can do whatever the fuck they want. I mean, what Obama killed a fucking U.S. citizen, so like,
Right.
I believe,
You know
yeah.
what
So,
this reminds me of though, man, is like how Howard Hughes was utilized by like the Nixon administration and it's just like really the intelligence community itself were using Howard Hughes as this plausible deniability cutout for the CIA effectively, and that's what I was just talking to Sam about this
what's
as
that?
far as about Howard Hughes, right? And
Oh, okay.
and
I thought
Brad
you looked down and then it was like I thought you were referencing the chat here. Thank you, Real John Doe. He said that you recently found our show and dig what you guys do. Appreciate it.
Oh, hell yeah,
Make sure to
brother.
show up every day at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then also show up on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, and keep an eye out for our solo projects. So
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, but Brad Binkley brought up the fact that like I can't remember actually. It was either him or Sam that mentioned that
Oh yeah, back up. Just to remind people, you went back on with on
yeah,
your,
man.
which I was kind of pissed. You're not pissed. I guess like that's the wrong word. I mean, I wasn't pissed. I'm like, damn it. Like I woke up the next morning and saw a message from like him. Well, the thing was like I was up in the middle of the night because actually one of my cats was giving birth, so I was literally so I wouldn't have been able to do it anyways.
Mhm.
But and then I saw you or him or somebody. I think it was him post about it like, oh, we're doing the thing with Brinkley and in Austin again. And so I just retweeted it and liked it, and then just kind of was like, oh, that's cool. And then I just moved on. And then he messaged me, I guess shortly after, but I was busy, predisposed, dealing with the cats, and I went to bed after too when it was done.
Uh-huh.
So then it was like the next morning, so I was like, fuck.
Did he? Fuck, man.
Yeah, so
I
he
didn't
messaged me like,
realize.
hey, you want to join? Which I guess
You
you guys are
son of
doing.
a bitch. I
Is this a
didn't
regular
realize.
thing now? Or have you guys instituted
Yeah,
regular?
man.
I
Yeah,
don't know. You guys get a
apparently.
regular schedule yet, or what?
No, dude. Like this is the hilarious thing. So this is the inside baseball of us. This is the reason it's this named whatever this is because we're just throwing this motherfucker together. But it's hey,
It's
it's been a lot of fun, and the fact that he's willing to do premium content
yeah.
with me to sort of drive people to our paywall content for
Yeah.
more support
I mean,
alone
even
is
just being I don't know, being a regular or just being someone that you
yeah,
would think he would think about is cool. I
100%,
mean,
man.
obviously, it's very clear what the show is. The show is like,
I love it.
crap. I haven't put out much paywall content
100%.
recently. I need to throw together something real quick. Who are some people I know that can just spit
Oh,
out some
for
facts?
sure.
Austin and Brad. Okay, cool. Let's
Exactly.
go.
That's exactly
So like,
what
hey,
happened.
whatever. I mean, you're the people who come to mind for that. So whatever. That's
Mhm.
hey. I mean, that's fucking great. I mean,
Super
shit, me and you were
grateful.
going on Wednesday, so it's like if we've already got this sort of relationship, who knows how what might be going on fairly regularly. I mean,
I'm saying,
shit,
man.
me and you can easily cook up an episode. Like,
Oh, yeah.
hey, as
No
much shit
problem.
we talk about, you're like, okay, I don't know. Do you want topical? Do you want some? What's the theme here?
Exactly.
What do you want? We'll make it happen. Like, give us a little time. We'll
Exactly.
come back to you with a fucking episode.
For sure, man.
So yeah, I mean, fuck, we could just keep on churning them out, like do like one a month or some shit. So I don't know. I think it's
100%.
cool. I'm glad to see. I mean, we're retards rise up this year.
Fucking A, man. I'm very excited. I think
Yeah.
it's a big year, honestly, for us. But
Mhm.
yeah, just very grateful. Sam's such a good person. I think that's what I love most about him is how he kind of pursues the law of abundance and as you do as well, brother. Like, as you said when we first met, basically it was rising tide lifts all boats, and it's like,
Mhm.
man, is that not the most beautiful perspective? And if you're willing to kind of put in the work, why not have a seat at the table, man? It's like there's plenty of seats. You just kind of have to claim it, right?
Yep.
Like it's interesting, but it's a beautiful thing, and I'm yeah very appreciative. But anyway, it was interesting because Brad brought up the fact that I think it's one of them brought up the fact that when Howard Hughes was locked away, losing his fucking mind, pissing in mason jars and shit. Like, basically, that's not the story, and that he potentially had been like kidnapped by the intelligence community, and the CIA was just keeping him locked away and like using all of his various assets in the private sector to exploit and leverage for their own benefit. Now, that's perfectly in the realm of possibility in my mind, especially considering how they used him as a cutout, especially considering, we talk about Gladio all the fucking time. And what else do you call domestic CIA black sites training paramilitaries, foreign paramilitaries, not even yes, domestic citizens as well, but not limited to that in scope at all whatsoever. And then when JFK assumes office, he discovers this covert clandestine operation, right, spreading all throughout the nation with these domestic black sites, and was entirely unaware of it until he assumes office. Once discovering it, very, very quickly, right, some of the paramilitaries who had been trained at one of those specific black sites inevitably were members of the kill squads that effectively assassinated JFK. And so, because JFK and RFK tried to put a stop to it instantly once they discovered that it was in practice and commonplace. So, very interesting.
Kill
to
squads
me,
don't just go away, doggy.
yeah, exactly, man. But the reason I brought up Howard
You don't
Hughes
end
is
kill
because-
squads. Kill squads end you.
That's what I'm saying. But the reason I brought up Howard Hughes at all is because that's what Elon Musk reminds me of, like a modern day
Yeah,
Howard
that's why I
Hughes.
mentioned it earlier. It made me think of like Howard Hughes,
Right.
Elon Musk. I mean, there's other ones. There was another one I was thinking about a bit ago. Well, even Epstein's kind of sort of fit that mold, sort
Sure.
of. I mean, he didn't get the level of PR that those two did, and it seemed like he was trying to avoid that, obviously. But I mean, it was kind of similar thing. Someone says we need to diversify and start an OnlyFans already. Well, speaking of, we should actually probably get into some actual content. We're kind of rambling, having fun, but yeah, there's definitely something to these weird elites that they kind of throw in for. It's almost like it's just an easy way for them to kind of do public, private stuff in our face and make it cool because you're like, ooh, look at this guy. This is let's get into one I told you guys we'd get into yesterday. This is Milo Yiannopoulos exposed. I saw this going around. This kind of made waves. Now I'm just gonna be forward facing here. I am knee jerk reaction, kind of like I tend to like Milo. I'll be honest. Sometimes he's a little bit exhausting, some of his antics, but generally I found him kind of endearing, kind of fun, a little crass. I don't know. He's generally somewhat similar. I'm not as. He's probably more conservative than I am. He definitely has takes that I don't have. But we're gonna go. Let's go through today. I mean, he's definitely said some stuff in the past that's wild. So for those who aren't aware, was like a big deal in like what 20 or the 2010s, 20 teens in the political sphere. He's kind of made a little bit of a
Probably
resurgence
peaked around 2016, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, because like the ushering in Trump, like he was a big part of that kind of movement. So he was like a gay conservative person. He came from, I believe,
he was the
Breitbart.
unicorn at the time.
Yeah, he came from like Breitbart, but that was kind of why he was such a big deal because he was like a gay that was conservative. You're like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
But then he was like super over the top, like offensive, but like in a Perez Hilton sort of way, like a Gossip
It
Girl.
was the
type
Rogan
thing kinda way.
interview, right?
Yeah.
That ultimately was like the canceling happened, and
Yeah, which we'll get into that. That's some of the stuff he said some wild shit. I mean, but he was gay. And his past leads into that. Well, no, seriously. I mean, him being gay. I mean, he claims now he's not. So I don't know.
That's
whatever.
the funniest thing ever.
Yeah. Apparently, he's like really not about the gay stuff now. Really, so I don't know. He says he's really religious. He's found God. All this stuff. Not about that life. So either
Nice,
way,
dude.
yeah. Oh, here's
brand.
Ashley. Think, change, repeat. Said good morning. Good morning. I like Milo too. He's a hilarious catty bitch. I hate to think he may be a fat / or other worse allegations, but I'm joining the company of young males. Which I wanted to dig into that because people saw this thread and let's be real. Most of us probably just scroll through it, didn't really read it, or didn't watch the videos, maybe just read it. And so I think this will be good for us to take a chance and kind of maybe analyze some of the stuff and see if maybe it's not quite exactly what you think it is. So starting off, we have Milo advocated pedophilia, promoting relationships between 14-year-olds and men in their 30s/40s on 2016 on Joe Rogan. Now, I know I just said not watch the videos. Now, I'm just realized we're not going to probably watch all these videos either because I'm not going to watch probably anything more than 2 minutes. That's retarded. That's 3 minutes and 26 seconds. This one, the next one, we probably will. It's like a minute. Milo defended the predator who violated him as a great man, talking about wanting to follow in his steps. Milo brags he finds 15-year-old boys hot. Now, damn it, I wish this wasn't 3.5 minutes long because I would like to see him saying that. But now, so far as the first part, I'm not going to waste so much of you guys' time to do that. Obviously, assuming he says the last statement, that's gross. But now the predator who violated a great man. Now, this is a thing a lot of people focus on a lot, and it does kind of come, and I've seen the interview before, where it does sound like he's defending this guy, and he kind of is. But you also kind of got to remember that this dude is the victim. So it's like, and obviously, I mean,
people realize with victims, right? They essentially create this sort of trauma bond, right?
yes,
And
exactly. Yeah. Which I touched on a little bit with this Dutroux stuff. The fact that, like, think about the idea of what Virginia Dufresne and how she said she had the multiple. Like, I want to say one of her altars was literally called something like the Horror. And now let's say, and I can use the example as a male to make it easier. It's like let's say Virginia Dufresne was a male. So you can imagine this to be easier because you can kind of imagine the pimp later. And the pimp is not obviously the pimp in these sort of dark circles is not I don't know, not a character people sympathize with typically. But if you think about it, like that guy, if you think about the altar of the whore, like if you're someone who's broken up your identity in multiple ways because you've experienced such trauma, what happens to that altar that's the whore, the one who indulges in all that degeneracy? What happens to that altar 10, 15 years from now? Well, you're likely probably going to be the one, that's now like the pimp in this organization or some similar such organization. So it's like, and as Dr. Ori says here, is the gay male world is full of young men dating older men. It's a well-known trope. And yeah, that doesn't make it okay. And I will say, like, it's, in a certain sense, it's also kind of like, I guess, not good that Milo holds these views because it makes you concerned, like, would he be one to victimize? But it's also kind of like you do need to filter this through, like, this guy was a victim. So, like, him having this, like, almost, I don't know, justifying the behavior of his initial assailant and not seeing it that way, like we can kind of wrap our head around it. You do got to remember he's the victim, and we don't have proof that he's victimizing. So I mean, obviously you can say like, I don't know about finding 15-year-olds hot or whatever. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I'm not going to watch a 3.5 minute video. That's ridiculous. The next one we'll watch, it's 1:12.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, you can only hope that it's basically what we had just suggested, is that it's some form of trauma bonding, and that's the reason he's sort of romanticizing the the abuse itself, right?
Yeah.
And the relationship dynamic that led to such abuse. So that alone, I would hope that is the case, rather than this is some sort of diabolical disinformation operation to seed and facilitate, right, the sort of what seems to be kind of like this path toward romanticizing the what do they call it? Minor attracted persons. That sort of
MAPS.
fucking framework. Yeah, where it's like definitely this apologetic framework for pedophiles, which is really, in my mind, just a justification for the sociopaths who are of course facilitating such abuse. So that's my concern, but I hope that's not the case.
Yeah. Here we have Milo admits to going to Hollywood pedo parties full of young boys and drugs. All right, now it's getting kind of wild. I don't remember this. When pressed to name anyone, Milo protects these pedophiles and defends pedo Brian Singer. Been nearly 10 years, Milo hasn't named a single child predator he met at these parties. Now, I watched this. I actually did watch this video when I scrolled this before because this did catch my eye. I was like, holy shit. This is kind of wild. It is kind of crazy. I've seen actually a few weird clips. For some reason, I don't know what it is. My phone just knows, or just coincidence. I found a lot of these weird videos of like celebrities or people that kind of in these like top circles saying stuff like this or making allusions to these sort of things, but like in a weird open way and like a ha ha ha. And then like, but it was given the time that it happened, everyone probably was like, oh, whatever, didn't really think about it. But like looking back now, you're like, what the fuck? Like I saw something with Kevin Hart and Mark Wahlberg, and he was saying something. It was like I don't know, them doing some sort of interview together for, I'm assuming, promoting something they did together. and he was like saying something like, "Oh yeah, that Diddy party," blah, blah, blah. And then like Kevin clearly looked kind of uncomfortable, but like laughing and trying to be like, "Oh, oh come on, you stop, you stop, you stop," but it keeps being like, "You stop, but like kind of ha ha ha," but like in a like kind of stressed, like, "Stop it, dude." And then they just and they're like, he's like, "Man, we're gonna have to cut this," like, but like a ha ha ha, and then like even Mark's like, "Ah, you can cut this." So I don't know if they did cut it or what, but it was it's just stuff. But there was stuff like that. I think at that time, 10+ years ago, a lot of people would just say shit, and like, I mean, it was kind of no one really put two and two together. So because we didn't have that second two, I guess, So let's watch this though, because this is actually kind of a wild one. You're like, what? Like, how have you not setting these names yet? So, all right.
That's what's going on with that guy who directed X-Men. Bunch of
Bryan Singer.
Yeah, a bunch of 14-year-old predators going after that poor man.
I'm not sure it's the case with him. No.
What the fuck?
That's a guy.
I lived in Hollywood a while ago.
Did you?
Briefly. And
did you go to one of his parties?
I went to other people who I won't name of a similar stature in Hollywood. I went to their boat parties and to their house parties and things, and some of the things I have seen have beggared belief.
Yeah? Can you give us like a...
Well, just... I don't want to be indiscreet about specific people.
Right, you don't have to do that.
It's going
just dance
to be,
around the facts.
Yeah, dangerous. But I can tell you the truth without dropping anyone in it.
Okay.
I mean, some of the boys there were very young. Very young.
And this is really recently?
I don't remember. No, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. I don't remember.
Statute of limitations.
I don't remember whether I ever met Bryan Singer or whether I even knew who he was then. But I knew other people of similar stature, as I say, and there were some very young boys around at that time. There was a lot of drugs and a lot of
twinks.
A lot of twinks taking drugs and having unsafe sex with older men, and some of these boys were very...
I'll be honest, I mean, maybe I missed it, but I didn't catch him supposedly protecting these pedophiles. I will say it is like, if you have seen shit like that, I guess kind of steel man him a little bit. I can kind of understand, like, maybe if you were like, in retrospect, it's like, you don't know how old these boys were, whether they were technically men. So it is kind of like just throwing that stuff out there when you don't have solid evidence. So to give him a little bit of a defense there. But still, this is kind of like, that is a wild shit to just say and not be like, yeah, let's go into this a little bit more, because you're kind of like heavily implying you were at parties where there likely was pedophilia occurring. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like maybe there's some responsibility a little bit on you to do something more than just, I don't know. Any thoughts? I mean, maybe I'm off. I mean, I guess there is a way you could justify and be like, I guess maybe you just didn't know. I mean, but you just assume I don't know. It's just gross. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that it reminds me of Paul Bonacci claiming that he was present at the foundation of NAMBLA, the North American Man Boy Love Association, right? Where in Boston with the Archdiocese, who essentially are tied in not only with Franklin and the child abuse scandal there, but also of course the Spotlight scandal, where you have all these, members of the Catholic clergy being ushered around, right, to avoid any sort of accountability or consequences for abusing children, and they're also tied up with the process, and it's interesting because they seem to leverage these mind control techniques like Dutroux did, right? With implementing the altars and yes, kind of, I think they train the victims themselves, the child victims, to behave in certain ways so that essentially for order, right? And depending on whichever the sadistic clients and whatever their sick pleasures, right, and as far as just
apply them with drugs, just like the twinks on drugs they were talking about. So it's like, I don't know, yeah, sure, some of them maybe just were young men who just did really want to get pounded out by some elites, but he seems like he's making implications, some of them young, and you don't know their past, and maybe these were very well young men who were been plied with drugs for a long period of time and groomed, because I think especially when you're dealing with men and women that are probably at this like ambiguous age, this age that Milo's implying, where it's like you go to these parties and you're like, I don't know if they're of age or not, like that, that like 16 to 20 range, where you're like, I like that range. I get that's the area where what I'm getting at is that they likely probably have been groomed to that point. That's not going to be So, I mean, the behavior you're seeing, or that them be like, oh, they want it. They're seeing that may not be, might not be a full picture of the situation.
Oh, for sure, dude. I'm telling you, like I heard one of the victims of Larry King. He was talking about how, and again, it's like a lot of these kids are kind of street kids. They fucking didn't have a very stable home environment, and they had a penchant for drug abuse at a young age, right? And so it very easily and very quickly they kind of found themselves in the wrong circles because of what they would do. A lot of the pedophile um, a lot of the pedophiles, basically what they would do is they would essentially strike up this friendship while they're grooming the young child, take them out, spend a shitload of money on them, get them entire wardrobes and things of that nature, you know, make them feel comfortable and safe, and also make them feel like I don't want this to stop, right?
Mhm.
Because wow, my life is so much better now with all of these luxuries, and then the abuse begins. In this sort of course, that's what grooming is, but basically what one of these victims of Larry King claimed was that uh, at the end of really what had happened was that they had a pool party basically, and then at a certain point after the booze is flowing and the kids are drugged, then people start removing their clothes, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's all in good fun. We're just having fun in the pool party sort of thing. And then all of a sudden you're in a pool with a grown ass naked man. And that was how this victim was explaining it all. It was very tragic, honestly. It's super sad listening to it, because clearly this one individual that I'm referring to, I can't remember his name. It's been so long, but he was, affected, of course, long term as far as the consequences of his psychology. But anyway, very, very devastating and tragic, but that tends to be how they behave on a regular basis. You know what I mean? Part of the playbook.
By the way, a real John Doe. I mean, I don't know if we've done it on Already Dead or if that was just on my. I think I've definitely had her on my show. I've had
Yeah,
Dana Duda. Yeah, we've had her
I
on
would
Already
like
Dead.
talk to her. No, you talked to her for sure. I haven't talked to her before. So at
Yeah,
some point,
that's
I
a
would love.
good bringing up. We should bring her up on Already Dead one of these days. She'd be great for that. I didn't think it. I don't know how she slipped my mind, but I've had her on the show. I did an episode with her a while back, kind of in that vein. Yeah, let's get back into this. Here it says Milo says pedophilia is a spectrum and attacks victims for calling out their abuse is not a big deal. Pedophile Milo mocks the idea of calling yourself a victim after the fact, something he later to excuse his pedophilic remarks. Milo was 32 at this time. Now, I will say this is on the Gavin McInnes show. So before we watch this, bear in mind, Gavin McInnes show is like typically more comedy. We've had him on Tower Gang before, Gavin McInnes. It was a fun show, funny guy. He was one of the guys who had Ye on, so it was kind of a natural fit when he was doing this craziness. And then consider, I'm just saying, color that, when you listen to that, think about it. I haven't watched this yet. I'm just saying, I see Gavin McInnes show and I see these things in quotes, and I think this is probably likely some sort of jokey joke. But let's see. Maybe it is dead serious. Let's watch.
An MP, a member of Parliament in Britain, who's just been fingered by the police, as it were, for being a paedophile, and he's on the front pages of all the tabloid newspapers.
They love getting fingered?
Well, and if you know anything about British politics, there are a few crucial details that will reveal to you who this person.
Isn't everyone pedophile over there?
Well, no, I mean, you see, there's this great taboo against conflating homosexuals with paedophiles, and you're not allowed to say that, of course, these things exist on a spectrum, and that there is, of course, a huge, disproportionate overlap between homosexual men and paedophiles versus heterosexual men.
Well, that's the whole thing with the Catholic Church, because they go, these Catholic priests, they're not fucking too.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. This is a completely dishonest framing. The way you says pedophilia is a spectrum. No, what he was saying, he was looking at looking at homosexuality in concordance with pedophilia, like it being, or in association with it, like being a spectrum, and like, which is kind of what we were getting at earlier, the idea of, hurt people. It's a very common trope and I'm not saying this is okay at all. I'm just saying clearly you got to color this from the context of this guy being a victim, and him kind of like, this is clearly in his head probably kind of what inundated him into the homosexual community. How he entered into it was through an older man kind of showing him the way. So him now making a statement about how like homosexuality in relation to pedophilia is a spectrum, essentially the spectrum being kind of like you might sort of be pedophilic somewhere along this, or may or may not. That's kind of what he's getting at. The idea that like, so if you're in an area with, he's essentially saying the uncomfortable truth that if there's a lot of gays somewhere, there's likely also a lot of pedophilia, but they're not necessarily one and the same, is what he is saying. He's saying it's a spectrum, so one doesn't necessitate the other, but it's not all that uncommon that one would go along with the other. So that's all he's saying, and I find that to be pretty fucking gross to frame it that way. But I guess let's finish this real quick, see if there's anything else.
2-year-olds, they're fucking pubescent boys. They're gays.
Well, yes, they are. In many cases, they are gay. Although I'm reluctant to hear a bad thing about the Catholic Church. If it hadn't been for Father Michael, I would have earned a fraction of what I did in my 20s. The real.
Pretty sure that's the guy who molested him. He's clearly making a joke that like, hey, I was able to be successful and work off this gayness.
The real problem I have is with all these people who suddenly remember they were abused 20 years later and suddenly decide that it was a problem. These are whinging, selfish brats. I mean, my God, it's really not that big a deal. You can't let it ruin your life. So if somebody fiddled with you, so what? I mean, I wouldn't give nearly such good head if it weren't for my priest.
Whoa.
Okay, that's kind of funny. All right, that's the end of that. I will say, it does say in there, he mocks people saying they're victim. Okay, that's fair. That is honest. He did mock people for saying they're victim. Although to some extent, I kind of, somewhat, sort of. I mean, if it's like 20 years later and you're a grown man, and you don't feel like a victim
think about what that is. That's a blanket judgment on all the False Memory Syndrome Foundation victims, right?
Yeah.
All the victims from
I guess so. I guess like
trauma.
I'm able to hold
abused before you've even gone through puberty. Imagine, man. Like I have memories.
Oh, they did say pre-pubescent in there, didn't they? If they're saying post-pubescent, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're both bad. You're both a child, but I'm like, those are differing degrees of holy shit, that's fucked up. I'm only saying I get what he means. The blanket statement's not great, but I get what he means in the idea that like, because I guess I kind of saw it as if I say I was a gay 15-year-old boy and I found some 30-year-old man and we had some weird romance. That's obviously wrong. Clearly wrong. But let's say 20 years later, and I never personally felt like I was wronged or anything. 20 years later, I decide I want to ruin this guy's life. That's kind of weird. I mean, I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong, he still did wrong, and it's probably something that should get out, but there's something weird about that. I mean, maybe it's sexist too, because if it was a woman, I'd probably be like, you'd be like, oh my God, tell your horrible story, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a sexist, and I'm just like, if you're a gay dude that like you never really saw it as a problem, and you're like well into your adulthood, and you're like, let's make this a thing now. It's a little weird. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm a big old sexist. Because I guess I do think, and I'm like, if this is a woman, I'd probably be like, okay, well, yeah, you should definitely. I don't know. I guess it really depends on context. Yeah, the blanket statement aspect of it is wrong, but as I said before, you got to color this through him being on the Gavin McInnes show, and then also who Milo is, and now to take into account like what does he mean here. I actually think this video was basically a nothing burger for whoever was trying to make him look bad. Here's another one that said, I'm not watching this one. I'm sorry, what did you say?
It's just so easy to make him look bad in the first place. It's not that difficult. It's the nature of what he does, right? That's what I think why he peaked in that moment in time where kind of the culture war hit its sociological apex in terms of outrage culture, kind of spurring outrage. You know how that was just in vogue for a certain amount of time, especially considering the rise of Trump at the time. Like it very much was, how can we spur outrage at every turn? And that is what inevitably led to cancel culture, or whatever you want to call it, for the period of time that, clearly now it's just like, see what outrageous thing you can get away with, and you can essentially push it as far as you want at this point. There's not
Oh
really,
yeah, we do it
you know
every
what I
day,
mean?
Wednesday at 9:11
Yeah,
Eastern.
that's what I'm saying. Like it's really that you know,
I just get the N word out of my system every week.
it's just hilarious. It is hilarious though, because the ceiling on, that sort of demand for accountability with any sort of like outrageous statements being made publicly, it definitely has waned in as a result of the initial Trump administration. I feel like, right, in certain ways, as far as just like now, I'm just witnessing kind of both sides, as I've said before. You see, I'm seeing the Trump supporters very much feeling as if they're receiving everything they voted for, and I think that is again, just sort of on the surface level of as far as the interpretation of real, you know, in my mind, s- systematic structural change, right, in any sort of direction that isn't ushering through the pivot toward the totalitarian technocracy. That's my ultimate concern, and I continue to say it because how many different um, you know. um uh, mentees of Peter Thiel, and I mean, how many different things do we have to point to, right? That kind of prove out the fact that obviously there's some sort of diabolical vision in place for, uh, you know,
Yeah.
even let's say the corporatization of like Project 2025 and the new school choice, right, impact being kind of like floated out to the public as an alternative for the current structure of American education in a positive way. But in reality, that's not quite the vision, right? The vision is much more dystopian in its implementation. And that is where everyone tends to kind of they've really just fallen for the window dressing, right? And the surface level propaganda, which is intended to, kind of provide that right, that basically all I'm saying is that the propaganda is very successful on each side of the political aisle right now, especially considering how much the leftists are kind of boiling over in terms of they're blaming Elon specifically for everything. It's kind of fucking hilarious, honestly, to witness. Like, just the average person that I know that absolutely despises anything about the Trump administration, or about the image of Trump in their minds, basically, that's been cultivated, manufactured for reactionary purposes alone. Honestly, you know what I'm saying? It's just interesting to witness, man. But in
And
regard,
on that point, like you even have here, like part of what's going on. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier, I also have like a is Ashley St. Clair Mossad, like, and how this kind of became a thing is now Elon and not Elon, but Milo and St. Clair are kind of arguing, and both of which are kind of like these characters are like, who the fuck are these people? And that's what we're looking into. We're not gonna go watch this video, as I said. I'm not even gonna read this just because like I don't have the video to support it, and I'll be honest, the claims it's making here I find very dubious after watching the last video, and they kind of took that out of context. So I mean, if you guys want to check that one out on your own, go for it. This isn't me trying to get out of anything, trying to cover for Milo or anything. It's just 6.5 minutes long, and that'd be ridiculous to do on a show like this.
so he got
Milo
raped by a priest. Is that what happened?
Yeah, he did
I'm pretty
too.
sure that was, yeah.
Yeah,
My
that's
God,
what
man.
happened. We have here Milo would double down, saying these pedophilic relationships are helping young gay boys in early 2017. He advocated for minors dating 29-year-olds, obfuscating his original argument, yet still defending pedophilia. And then even in Milo's apology months later, he still supported pederasty. So let's look at these. See, and we'll just look at the underlined part instead of reading the whole thing. He said, 4, the videos do not show people what they say they show. Do not show what people say they show. I did joke about giving better head as a result of clerical sexual abuse committed against me when I was a teen. If I choose to deal in an edgy way on an internet live stream with a crime I was the victim of, that's my prerogative. It's no different to gallows humor than it. Once again, I mean, they underline this as if this is advocating their point. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. He's 100% correct there. All right, on to the next point with the underlying thing, supposedly, backing up his argument. 6, I did say there are relationships between younger men and older men that can help a young gay man escape from a lack of support or understanding at home. That's perfectly true, and every gay man knows it. But I was not talking about anything legal, and I was not referring to prepubescent boys. I shouldn't have used the word boy when I talk about those relationships between older men and younger gay men. I was talking about my own relationship when I was 17 with a man who was 29. Okay, once again, this is a situation that makes it way different. Don't get me wrong, 17 and 29 still wrong, but like vastly different than like how this is being portrayed. And once again, this guy, this esoteric shaggyism guy, honestly, I'm coming out more and more on Milo's side of this as I go on. I don't know, any thoughts, Austin? This seems like a dishonest framing from esoteric, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that. Like I said, very easy to attack and target Milo for any of these statements, but you can do it in a more genuine way, right? This seems a little disingenuous in the framing. It's just the framework alone is very,
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just want to let you guys know now. I'm just going to cut through all the pedophile related stuff now, and I'm just going to get to the Fed stuff because honestly, this has been so dishonest that I'm just going to write off the rest. I'm not going to waste the show's time going further into this accusation, which is who knows? Maybe these other ones are really fucking headshots and really get them good. But like after already seeing a couple that were clearly kind of dishonest and very much a reach, I'm no longer interested, as most people are at this point. So if you guys out there do find something that you do, you're like, holy shit, you should bring this up. No, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not seeing anything that I would really, be like, holy shit, so far. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm like, it's shocking. It's crass. But, and it's Milo. I mean, so I'm trying to scroll through, see if I can find stuff. There's someone saying Milo's invited.
Battery from my mouse. I'll be right back.
Okay. As I'm scrolling through, I do see here Milo invited minors to his hotel room in 2017 via leaked emails. He wasn't just preaching pedophilia, he was actively practicing it. He said he was had his at the time assistant Ryan Gerdusky to help. Let me see. Let's stay in touch, and if anything new arises, please reach out. Milo would like to invite you to his room tomorrow before the rally at 10 a.m. if you can make it. If not, I'll try for a different time. His hotel room at the Trump Soho. Let me know if it's possible. Again, I obviously can't make it. Thank you for the generous offer. Okay, so they found something from a minor. Okay, minor who I don't know. Once again, this is said it had his assistant. I don't know who this person is. There's nothing showing who this person is. This is nothing. This is absolutely nothing. The only thing I have to believe this is a minor is because you said it's a minor. I'm not seeing anything saying this guy's a minor. So once again, I'm unimpressed by this thread. Whoever this guy is esoteric shaggyism, I determine you are a hack, and you have wasted this show's time. I don't even care about the Fed accusations anymore.
I just
honestly.
can't imagine spending that much time putting together a thread like that. That's fucking hilarious to me.
I mean, hey, dude, he fucking went viral. I mean, this thing is extensive.
No, that's cool.
But as I'm going through, these are all reaches and these are all weak, which is like if you take any person in the public eye, you can take crass. I mean, someone could do exactly this with me with Tower Gang easily. Like, look at he said this. Look at he said that. Look, he said this. Look, he said that.
Man, it's like when I went on that paywalled only conspiracies with Sam and talked about Jonestown for a second and vomited a bunch of shit out. And then this progressive chick that some journalist in San Francisco decided she was going to take her time to put together an article about what seems to be paywalled content that she didn't even watch because she had no sort of reference to any sort of substance involved in the conversation. It seems like she only saw the 30-second clip and then attempted to completely destroy both of us due to the fact that I had just recently gone on tinfoil that same week to talk about Ruby Ridge and basically said that Sam was platforming white supremacists and tried to conflate me personally with a Klansman. I swear to God.
I mean, I can see it.
It's so fucking hilarious, though. Like, this is what
you do look aggressively white.
Wow, you motherfucker. That's hilarious. But you bring up as far as this Milo thread and his connection to being abused by a priest. I mean, that falls perfectly in place with, right, the archdiocese and the Catholic clergy being involved in, not they were training. Um, um, what's the name of that woman who's Kathy? Is it Kathy O'Brien?
Kathy
Maybe,
O'Brien,
maybe
Kathy Newman's
Kathy.
the like. So you're
No,
saying so
the
Kathy
MK Ultra
O'Brien's
lady.
the MK Ultra bro? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, she claimed that her father was essentially trained by the Catholic clergy in Boston on these methods of mind control techniques, and uh, essentially to wear a mask while raping her while she was 5 years old. Like one of the craziest, as far as like how they implement the altars, how they implement the DID, and
Dude, I think it's probably so fucking weird in the upper circles of the Catholic. You got weird entities like the Jesuits, the Opus Dei. I mean, even at a ground level, think about what a priest is. A person that you confess all your sins to. What is that? Just not
and
the
most of them are
ultimate
all gay,
blackmail
right?
agent?
David Ferry, all
Yeah.
these, right? They were all like these what do they call them? Traveling Roman Catholic priests. I can't remember. There was a term for them, and they're all connected into the incorporating the process church and shit, and also being involved directly with, down in Louisiana, something was going on, but that's all I'm saying. But the
Speaking
fact of
of,
the matter is, all these
sorry.
guys, like David Ferry himself specifically, they claim he was kicked out of, the faith because of his disposition toward young boys, basically. But in reality, I think that's potentially why he was even brought in the first place, because half of them are all in the closet, right? They're closeted gay men that essentially are pedophiles by nature, I feel like. But what am I don't even understand homosexuality, to be honest. Like I've tried very very often to attempt to at the very least, like, create some sort of like, comprehensive structure in my mind as to how you could be born a gay man. I guess it's possible, but I'm very much unaffiliated with that.
They're not born, they're made, dude. I mean, I will be honest. I think some of them are probably born, man. But I don't know. I mean, but I do think there is a large group that are basically made, essentially.
I wonder how much your environment as a child and your upbringing and the parental guardians that you're exposed to, how all of those things factor in to the ultimate, what really, I mean, the decision and the conversion, right? I'm not sure. I have no idea, but I definitely, I definitely have no real frame of reference there. But I will say that it reminds me of, you saw the Nick Bryant post recently of that Boston Globe article about the NFL emails revealing extent of the New Orleans Saints damage control for Catholic clergy sex abuse crisis. I was like, holy shit. I didn't realize that basically there was an institutionalized cover up. Well, of course there would have been, but the fact that you have like, I'm not at all surprised, considering that Nick Bryan even like kind of tracked Larry King to like the Washington Redskins ownership meetings and all ownership group and all this shit. So like there's definitely a deep, I would say a very deep and clear footprint in regard to, the sort of corrupt nature of NFL leadership and a lot of these organizations, because really each team is just like it's their own sort of like Fortune 500 company in a way, right? Like each ownership group is like essentially like the CEO of a major business, and so, but it is interesting to see how the NFL operates, because especially considering fucking Jerry Jones. Did you ever see that video of Jerry Jones at like a Cowboys spring training camp from like last fucking season, man? And Jamie Foxx, before everybody thought he was cloned. No, actually, I think it was right after everybody thought he was cloned. But still, Jamie Foxx is sitting there doing like a live, I don't know, maybe a Snapchat or an Instagram stories or something. But he's filming live, and Jerry Jones is talking about all the different measurements and right, the stats with each individual player that he's considered. It was either that they had drafted and was new to the team or something. I can't remember now. But then he drops this bomb talking about dick size. Like straight up, yes, like talks about how big this dude's dick is, and like it's the craziest fucking thing I've ever seen. And then you see Jamie Foxx's reaction, and he goes off live immediately. It's one of the funniest videos I've ever watched. But still,
That's
I'm
amazing.
like, it's some
Hey, I
sort
know
of
that
like
could just be being hilarious. But
yeah, very much.
Yeah,
Or like it's almost like this plantation mentality as well, that,
Mm.
in a way, which is
Yeah.
very interesting. But I thought it was one of the funniest fucking things of all time.
Mhm.
But
All right,
anyway,
let's,
that's a
I-
crazy
there's a-
story
go
though,
ahead.
and people
Yeah,
should read that story about how the New Orleans Saints were involved in sort of facilitating a cover up for sexual abuse.
Speaking of sexual abuse cover-ups in Louisiana, tonight I will have on Stephen DeLay to talk about True Detective season 1.
Oh, Jesus.
So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Here is a little thing that I don't know to what extent we're going to really provide commentary, but I kind of wanted to read this. There was a recent Defend the Guard legislation that fell through. It looked like it was going to go through, and then last minute, some one-star general shows up and does what they always do. And I thought that the Libertarian Institute published an anonymous op-ed. It says right here, this morning, the Libertarian Institute published an anonymous op-ed by a member of the Georgia Air National Guard with over 20 years of service. His identity is hidden because although generals can testify in uniform against Defend the Guard, he is silenced. A full reprint in this. And the funny thing is, technically, I think the generals aren't supposed to be doing it too. Because I think it's a loophole. Like, you're not supposed to use your uniform to push certain things. But then I guess if you're representing the government, like in an official capacity, you can. So I think that's how they get away with it. But technically, the idea they're saying they're doing this in an official capacity is kind of retarded, because I really doubt if you talk to the Secretary of Defense that he would probably, he's supposedly pro Defend the Guard legislation. So the idea that the generals are able to do it in representing the military is ridiculous. Because that essentially is them saying that the military as a whole is against the Defend the Guard Act, and that's which I guess maybe sure that is the case, but my point being is that they're kind of they're stepping outside their rank, I guess, essentially by doing this, unless there's some sort of official something somewhere that says they can. But anyways, it's the on-the-ground troops are not able to talk about this. And I thought it was partially interesting because for those of you guys who do know, I started this podcast while I was still active duty. These guys are guard. So technically, I think they're actually allowed to talk more than the active duty is. The rules, they'll go into this a little bit. But, that's part of why, I've told you guys before, Jose Galison's a made-up name. That's why, because when I joined, I was active duty, and you're technically not allowed to do this sort of stuff. And if I was, it's debatable. I think it's a gray area. If I was saying my real name and being hey, I'm against the military, against this X, Y, and Z, giving my takes and being very anti-military.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so that's why I did that. The only reason I still have the name is because it's kind of why not at this point? I've already made a brand behind it. Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to read this piece. I thought it was interesting. It's just I'll read it in one kind of go, and then we'll probably just move on to the next topic. I don't think there's too much to say, but I thought it'd be good to kind of use our show to give a platform for these sorts of people to say what they say, and I think it kind of aligns with what I've done, because that's kind of what I was doing. So I was essentially at one point was this anonymous military member, sort of. So. Here you go. I'm starting. I've served in the Air National Guard as a full-time active guard reserve, AGR, for over 20 years. I've deployed overseas, responded to disasters here at home, and stood ready whenever my state or nation called. But today I'm writing honestly, not because I want to hide, but because I have to. You see, despite my decades of service, I'm not allowed to publicly support Defend the Guard Act without facing potential repercussions. It's a fine line we AGRs walk. Full-time military professionals who are expected to serve quietly, even when policies threaten the very mission we signed up to support. Yet, while I remain silent, I've watched 2-star generals stand before legislative committees in uniform, lobbying for policies that extend endless wars and stretch the Guard beyond its limits. The hypocrisy is staggering. The Defend the Guard Act ensures that National Guard troops can only be deployed into active combat overseas if Congress issues a formal declaration of war, as required by the U.S. Constitution. It's not anti-military, it's not anti-mission, it's about ensuring that the Guard remains ready for its primary role, defending our states and communities first. But as an AGR, I'm considered active duty under Title 10 status. Oh, okay, this makes sense. This guy is an AGR, which essentially means he doesn't do the typical weekend a month thing as a guard or reserve, what they do. This guy's working full time, but he's as guard. But he's technically considered active duty in this capacity. So this is why he, as I mentioned earlier, there's different rules with guard and reserves and active duty. He's under active duty, so he's not able to do this, speak in certain ways. Anyways, I'm considered active duty under Title 10 status, which means speaking out on legislation, even legislation that directly affects my job and my family's well-being, could lead to disciplinary action. I could be reprimanded, demoted, or even discharged for voicing support for a bill designed to protect both the Constitution and the readiness of our National Guard. Meanwhile, senior officers, generals with stars on their shoulders, freely walk the hall of our state capitals in full uniform, advocating for policies that continue the cycle of undeclared wars. They face no consequences, no reprimands, no threats to their careers. They're protected by the very system that silences those of us actually carrying out the missions. While generals lobby for more deployments, AGRs like me see the consequences firsthand. When Hurricane Katrina devastated the Gulf Coast, it was the National Guard, not active duty forces, that led the relief efforts. Active duty commanders stepped aside because of posse comitatus, the law that prevents federal troops from engaging in domestic law enforcement. The Guard was essential. Imagine if those units had been overseas like so much of the Louisiana National Guard was at the time, stretched thin by another undeclared conflict. In 2017, Georgia's 165th Airlift Wing coordinated massive relief operations after Hurricanes Irma and Maria. But at the same time, the wing was tasked with deploying to the Middle East. The result, fewer aircraft, fewer personnel, and a reduced ability to respond when Americans need the help the most. During one deployment to Kuwait, our airlift missions dwindled as the fight against ISIS cooled. But instead of returning home, we were ordered to keep flying, often empty planes, just to inflate performance metrics. It wasn't about mission success, it was about optics. This is what happens when Guard units are treated as an extension of the active duty military, rather than the state-based force they were meant to be, and it's why Defend the Guard matters. I wish I could stand before the Georgia legislature and share these stories openly. I wish I could testify about the strain on families, the readiness gaps, and the wasted resources caused by federalizing the Guard without congressional oversight. But I can't, because I'm an AGR, because speaking out could cost me my career. So I rely on you, citizens, veterans, and legislators to speak for me and every other guardsman who faces the same restrictions. If 2-star generals can lobby in uniform for endless wars, the least we can do is ensure those wars are constitutionally declared. Pass the Defend the Guard Act, give the Guard back its rightful mission, and give a voice to those who have been silenced for far too long. And then the last little thing. This man's words are representative of many currently serving members of the National Guard. You need to be their voice. And it gives a little thing for helping pass legislation or donating, which is probably one of the few political causes that I would sort of support. I don't know to what extent it'll be successful, but hey, if there's anything that is probably worth a damn, this is probably one of them. So,
right.
I know that's the end of it. I just thought that was worthwhile. I think going on. I think we need to start holding these people to account. When you see these generals at these things, start tagging people like Hegseth and be like, "Hey, is this the military's official, stance? What this guy's saying? How is this guy here in uniform advocating these policies? Is this the military's official stance? Push him on it. He supposedly claims he's against the Guard, but that should be the move going forward. The idea that these generals can show up and push against this legislation, but yet people going the other way. Ironically, the thing that is in comports with the Constitution, that's not allowed. So it's kind of an inversion of the way things are supposed to be. So I don't know, any thoughts? I wanted to read it to get it out there. I thought it was a good message, and So.
No, that's beautiful. I agree with with that, obviously, wholeheartedly. I don't think the NGs should, any National Guard troop should be. I mean, shit. I don't really agree with deploying, just the infantry alone to these foreign interventions. You know what I mean? Which are very clearly just nation building efforts for right? But so that's I'm in full agreement there, and obviously that you can point to Katrina as well, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous. You remember the footage from Katrina where like you had like special force or not special force, but like Blackwater mercenaries like stationed on like with snipers on rooftops and shit during the that's one of the craziest videos ever. But it just goes to show that like at any point it's kind of hilarious how many people are under this misconception that the United Nations troops couldn't, intervene domestically at any certain point. I think is very
They can't
plausible.
handle their own shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't even have right I mean, we're already sort of in this sort of just as far as new recruits are concerned for the military, it's kind of a crisis at this point. It seems. Right.
Oh yeah,
So,
they're struggling to recruit. I know that for
yeah.
a fact. They're struggling.
Mhm.
They're it's rough over there so far. And good. I'm glad. This is like the seen and the unseen. Like imagine if the federal government wasn't stealing that much of your money and allocating there. Actually, let's even say they were still stealing your money. The same amount of money stealing happened, but instead of sending it over to go drop bombs and kill people and do whatever the fuck, and
drop leaflets on Gaza.
yeah, drop
You see
leaflets.
that
Yeah,
shit?
I read that.
What the
I covered that on the show yesterday. But as opposed to, let's say they were funding National Guard troops that were just stayed stateside and they assisted with whatever needed to be done, like guard and reserves, and that's all they did is they just were a domestic entity that I mean, obviously, I guess maybe there could be an issue where this gets dark and becomes some sort of weird, standing army essentially. But my point being is like this could be. I mean, like as they kind of pointed out with national disasters and stuff, it's like, or just all the different things that go on. It's like it'd be better to have these. I mean, there's still a leech. There's still leeches on the economy. They're still stealing our money. It's still a misuse of money, but it can be less of a misuse. It can go to instead of going to death and destruction, it can go towards helping out where they can. Like if you're gonna steal my money, at least I don't know. It'd be cool if someone like I don't know when my fucking fence gets blown over by a fucking hurricane or whatever. Maybe you take that money you stole and you send over a couple dudes and you fix my fence.
Dude, it reminds
It's
me
something,
yeah. But it reminds me of this. Just the when the CIA was created in the first place, it was created to really be an intelligence gathering arm for the executive branch, for the president himself, and that was all it was intended to be. And then look what that became.
Yeah, they didn't
Oh
even
my
carry
God.
guns. I think the FBI and the CIA I don't think carried arms to begin with.
Dude,
Yeah.
domestically, it was against right that their charter essentially is that just domestic operations in general, what's like off limits. That was never at all supposed to be within the realm of what they. But it's just kind of hilarious that tends to be what government does in the first place, right? Like, isn't that just the nature of government? You look at right, everybody was heralding these budget cuts or military cuts, right, spending cuts, and it's like it's exactly what I expected, unfortunately, which I'm not saying there's no reason for optimism, but when you see that the Pentagon, right, of course, with Hegseth claiming the order will of course only redirect spending, we're not actually cutting military spending. It's like, yeah, no, were you under this right false impression that for some reason for the first time in the history of the state they're gonna fucking give our money back? That's so naive and childish to even like. But again, people are under that impression anyway because they basically just read headlines in the first place and go off and running with whatever their confirmation bias kind of it's a struggle, honestly, and I'm just witnessing it firsthand that that people are very much either falling for the hopium trap or they're in this in this mindset that of course, like Trump is the evil dictator who will end term limits and sort of concept, right? And that Elon is they didn't vote for Elon, nobody elected Elon. It's just the funniest fucking thing I've ever watched as far as people are labeling. This falls within the framework of what I talk about so very often, which is identify our common enemies, right? And which of these individuals do you believe to be the puppet, right? The puppet actors, right? The actors in the political theater. And who do you believe to be the true power brokers? Because it really exposes, I think the vulnerability of the psychology of the average American who doesn't even understand how to interpret how power is structured, and implemented in real time and leveraged and exploited. Like, learn psychological operations. Understand that we're in the midst of a mind war at all times, and we are being, targeted in every direction, and that is by design. So the demoralization aspect of it, it only makes sense when I'm seeing everyone being labeled as a black pill for just kind of exposing the unfortunate dystopian future. It's like, hey man, it's not a black pill if if you're addressing the reality we're facing like that. You know what I mean? It's like, that doesn't mean there's no room for optimism in certain aspects of life. It's like, that's really kind of dismissive, and I think the wrong way to approach, right, just being exposed to the truth. So I think, yeah, the truth in itself is, it's this sort of like, it honestly is like, it's the divine path, right? If you're objectively pursuing truth, I truly believe that. And yeah, it's very unfortunate that people are kind of misinterpreting and mislabeling people as in a dismissive way for attempting to remain skeptical in regard to just, right, the administration and power. I don't worship power. People love leveraging power against their enemies. Fuck that, man. Like, what is that going to accomplish? Right? We're heading in the same direction. The technocracy is awaiting us. Like, what are you fucking doing? Well, fuck the libs. Biden sucked. Dude, yeah, okay. Like, what are you accomplishing with worshiping Elon and falling for the propaganda and these false personalities who really aren't, in my mind, man, like I said earlier, Elon's the fresh face. He's the Howard Hughes. He's right. He's the plausible, deniability for the private sector. He's a wonderful asset. I'll be honest, and they're going to crucify him whenever the time comes in the public, as far as public perception is concerned, because in reality, these individuals are the puppets. They're the political actors in the theater. The power brokers stand tall behind them, and so they will remain unaffected by any sort of accountability. So the pivot. Anyway, I'll stop talking shit. I'm sorry, dude.
You're good, dude.
Sorry. I see
All right,
false
we're on to the next one.
transparency, man. I see false transparency and limited hangouts. They're not dropping the fucking Epstein documents. They're not.
Oh no, that's
they're
retarded.
not solving
That's
the
retarded.
JFK assassination.
I don't mean solving it would be pushing. I mean, we might get some more documents.
They are not.
I am extra annoyed by the Epstein list thing, because it's like, dude, there is no fucking list. Like, this is retarded. There's no fucking list. Like, oh, we're gonna get the fucking Epstein. There's no fucking list. There's no fucking list. You stupid fucking list.
For real.
Like, that's all. There is no list, and the idea that, like, it's just such a dumb, and it's just annoying. It's like, the first couple times, this is why I quote tweeted something when Pam Bondi said the other day. Like, someone asked her, and he's like, "Yep, it's on my desk right now, and we're gonna," and they're like, it's been, because I've seen so many people be like, "Oh, Epstein list," like lately, because there's been a lot of questions, or like, "Oh, they're gonna release the Epstein list," and I'm like, I let it go the first couple. I'm like, okay, sure, maybe it's some sort of colloquialism. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They're meaning like something else. But there comes a certain point where, like, just that term by itself is so insulting. Like, sure, maybe you mean, I can give you the benefit of the doubt that, like, maybe you mean there's some documents. But, like, a list heavily implies literally a list of names. So it's like, you can only say this so many times and say it with a deadpan face before I'm like, dude, what the fuck? There's no fucking list. There's no fucking list. Like sure, I'm glad if you guys are going to release documents, that's great. But stop calling it a fucking list, because there's no fucking list. There's no magic list. It gives everyone this crazy copium that, like, or hopium that, like, they're going to get this magic list and be like, guys, all right, we got the list. Let's start prosecuting one by one, every single one of them. No work needed. Right here, right. You're like, Jesus Christ, you're fucking retarded. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Here's Doctor 420 saying Riot season going to be extra peaceful, and he's sharing a tweet from Andy No saying Antifa members and their co-conspirators are sharing a bomb-making guide on social media and elsewhere. They're encouraging their militants to carry out terrorist attacks in the U.S. and Europe. I've only posted the first 2 pages. The rest of the documents provide detailed, genuine instructions.
You're domestic terrorism, brother. You know?
Recently I posted that if FBI Director Cash wanted information about how Antifa networks carry out organized crime, I'd be willing to share my expertise. In reaction, Antifa members threatened to kill me via threats on Blue Sky. So it's just a anarchist priming explosives note manual. Honestly, this is a non-story to me. We've had the anarchist cookbook forever now.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, here's someone sharing it. I mean, this is nothing to me. Okay, there's more here. All right, there's more. This is something we're saying they're upset about sharing. He's already lobbying to turn this fucker needs to get old. Yeah, then he uses people being mean to him on Twitter. Okay, honestly, this is stupid. I'm sorry. I love you, Dr. Tory 420, but this is nothing. I mean, he's saying that these people are sharing a bomb-making guide. Okay, cool. Yeah, we've had the anarchist guide or cookbook forever. That's out there. You can go make bombs, or you can learn how to make bombs on your own. That's a thing. Go buy the anarchist cookbook if you want to. This is one of the ones that I've always been like, I'm gonna buy one of these days, but I'm just like, I don't know. It's one I'll never read, but it'll be nice to have on my bookshelf.
Yeah.
I don't. This is nothing. So he's saying. They're encouraging. Who's they? And where are you seeing this? Like, is it just this one tweet and that's it? Them saying, here's an explosives manual? Yeah, it's an anarchist account. Like, yeah, it's not that crazy. They're going to be edgy boys and be like, look, here's this explosives manual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on that. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, I don't take this serious whatsoever. I mean, just could mean something, but this kind of looks like clickbait from Andy No, to be completely honest.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, man. It's just I'm already very much under the impression that we will see some just legitimate domestic terrorism that was, in my mind, manufactured false flags, obviously, but still, just witnessing sort of right those bus bombs, right, the foiled plot in Israel just recently that was kind of used to re-escalate. Once again, of course, in terms of the ceasefire negotiations in Palestine in general. And then there was also another story as well that reminded me of that same similar tactic, right? But it was, and it's interesting too, because right after that whole report came out of the Israel terror attack, then essentially directly after the bus explosions near Tel Aviv, you have Netanyahu ordering the West Bank escalation directly after the empty buses were exploded. So,
surprise.
Yeah, it's like how is that not so very obvious in regard to how you manufacture consent? You know, I mean, that's clearly what you would do. And then you tie that in with kind of these what inevitably became like, what was it, the hostages, right, just being sacrificed essentially, right, in sort of some method of manufacturing consent as well. And so you have like, what were their names? Cherie, Ariel, and the how do you pronounce it? The Bebas or
the Bebas kids? I haven't looked into that. That was one I figured I'd get a thread or a story and read one of these days, because I know that's something they've been mauling over. Which there was literally, I was listening to something this morning. I think it was my buddy Clint's show, and he was there was some video that maybe I'll have to look for later and maybe play in one of these days. But they were literally apparently the Israelis were claiming right off the jump that, like, you know, that apparently, and I want to say they even said it was in like September, which is like, how the fuck would you know something? So it was like months ago, supposedly. They were saying that the fucking Hamas beat these babies to death, essentially, like with their bare hands, which is like.
Yes.
And apparently, the father claimed like a year ago that they had died in like in airstrikes or something. So I mean, I don't know how he would have known that, but I mean, obviously, that's the far more plausible reason than Hamas beat them to death with their hands. Like, I get it. The narrative is like these are animals, but it's like. That's just retarded. Like, and why? Why would you beat babies to death? That's like such a great leverage, hostage wise. Like,
man, you should watch this real quick. Look at what Dan Cohen says here. It's definitely like just considering. I'm curious to watch this propaganda footage real quick. It's only 29 seconds. See if I haven't watched it yet, but I know that what he's saying here, I'm entirely in agreement as far as the reason that these kids have been murdered, right, is essentially what he says, because the Netanyahu government and its supporters lied to the Israeli public and insisted military pressure would force Hamas to release them, pumping out genocidal propaganda like this. And let's watch it real quick, see it. The fighting must continue until the release of all the captives. Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't watched it before, so I didn't know there was no there was no actual news coverage or anything. But what is interesting to me is that apparently there's really basically been Netanyahu and these allies waging this psychological warfare operation to sacrifice these captives for further conquest of Gaza is essentially the line of interest.
The Biba story is conveniently as they're negotiating the second phase. So you could look at it two ways, like an intentional trying to spike the deal, trying to fuck up the deal, or you could look at it as like a negotiating chip. I mean, that's one way you could look at it. Like, hey, we're going to make these claims that you did atrocities to evict some response or something at you, although that seems stupid to me. But, I don't know, far be it for them to do stupid things. They do stupid things all the fucking time. So who fucking knows? And it is like, as I was saying yesterday, with this back and forth of ceasefire, it's like every day it's like, we're so back. And the next day, oh, it's so over. Yeah. We're so back. It's like, I mean, the day... I guess I'm happy we got a ceasefire sort of right now. I'd like it if things continued, if we keep stopping. So I don't know. Well, we just gonna hope. I don't know. I have no idea if this is gonna hold. But we have one more thing I want to go through.
Dude, go into the Dutroux stuff. But one last thing? Did you see Steve Bannon's Roman salute, man?
Yeah, dude, we're fucking bringing it back, dude. I'm telling you. I'm Team MAGA. We're bringing it back. Let's fucking go. My heart goes out to you all. I love you. And I mean, how else am I going to show it besides something as fucking cool as it? But it keeps going off.
Yeah, dude. It's the new thing.
Yeah.
Zionists are doing the Sig Heil. That's right.
Dude, we're bringing it. It makes so much sense. I mean, it was far more fitting for them now than it is for, Nazis. Like, what are Nazis doing? No, Nazis are nobodies. I mean, who's doing the genocide? Who's genociding nation? Who's genociding races now? Come on. Who's going to be doing so? Like, come on. All right. I mean, it used to be Roman, so we're bringing it back. We're the genociders. That's people do that, Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into this. If you want after this, you can. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go do some tube feeds and kitties.
Honestly,
you're gonna jet too? Okay, cool. I have a couple that we didn't get into today. Just so you guys know, I'll be back on Tuesday. You might take over the show for me tomorrow. I'm not sure, but Tuesday, I guess I have an Ashley St. Clair Mossad, and then also updates on Zizians, but I'll probably save that to Tuesday. So just so you guys know what's kind of coming up. But let's go through this. I think this will be a good one. I'm glad I have Austin around for this one because this kind of wraps a lot of things together. Maybe gets kind of on a similar page since we're getting ready to go on fucking. I'm going to retweet this real quick. Here's trying to establish a link between Dutroux and the stay behind networks in Belgium. It says, was Marc Dutroux a pawn for a child trafficking network in which Belgian Gladio was involved or even possibly running? Traces of this network can be found post-World War II up until 1996 and Dutroux's arrest. Man, this one did numbers. This thread is going to try and explain that. Indeed, Dutroux seemed to be working for an organization akin to Gladio. The principal investigation into the crimes of Dutroux is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of child abuse and trafficking networks in Belgium. Most of you are familiar with this notion, but what's referred to as the Dutroux affair reaches far more people and documented cases of abuse than the 6 kidnappings and the 4 murders he's been accused of personally and held responsible for. To sum it up quickly, Dutroux was arrested in August 96. He's accused of kidnapping and raping 6 girls, 4 of them which are now dead and buried. His wife, Michelle Martin, his accomplice, Michel Leverrier, I don't know, that's a fucking annoying word. And a few days later, his other accomplice, Michel Nihoul, are also arrested. I feel like I totally used to pull that word off. I don't know why I can't pull it off right now.
Lelievre.
Lelievre? Oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
that sounds actually kind of nice when you say it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, not a nice guy. Nice last name when said correctly. There are a lot of details I'm passing out on here, but this is not the focus of this thread. Instead, let's focus on the phone line set up right after the arrest of Dutroux. The goal was for this to serve as a call for witnesses, if there were any victims willing to speak up. These anonymous witnesses will be called the X witnesses, each one of them given a number, X1, X2, and so on and so forth. And the investigation file on them will be referred to as the X files. X1, whose name is Regina Louf, is the X witness whose very credible declarations will shake Belgium, which we've gone into how you can corroborate her claims in a previous thread. Regina Louf claims include being groomed for prostitution and abuse by local Belgian high profiles, by her own grandmother. She was given to her by her parents and set up with a pimp from as early as she can remember. I'll spare the gruesome details. There are a lot of awful stories recalled by Regina, but the reason she called in the first place was because of Nihoul. She remembered that face. She had seen it before and was certain he had abused her multiple times at various parties and orgies she was brought to. Which, I mean, look at that fucking mug. I'm not... Ugh. Michel Nihoul, if you're unfamiliar, is a Belgian businessman and con artist who made his money cheating other people and knowing the right people, as he was all cozy with the fascist subgroup SEPIC inside of the Christian Democratic Political Party, PSC. So, I don't, anything you want to go into at this point? Because I know there's a lot we're throwing out there. CPIC, that's the political organization. I know we've gone through a lot of these threads already, so if you've been through all these shows, you probably already got it, but like, I know a lot of these are weird. CPIC is probably the biggest thing you need to know out of that one, that's a political group associated with Michel Nihoul. That's also, it's being run by Van Boynant, I always fuck his name, Vander Boynants, VDB. Vanden Boynants, yeah. So that's the guy who he's also...
They all have that Jimmy Savile effect where it's like, holy shit. You just look at them and you know that everything's true. Like, honestly, man.
Yeah, and Boynants, I think we just covered yesterday. I want to say, was it Latinus himself maybe that I think claimed he saw... No. It was Michel Libert, the one... The one guy who's like kind of, the most known for having the video where he claimed that the gendarmerie gave him the pass to kind of do intel for the Brabant killings. Like that guy. That guy, he claimed I believe he claimed he saw, his name was like the Bear or something. I believe he said he saw Vanden Boynants and some other, and Prince Albert at the Pink Ballets, which essentially were these orgies.
Dude, listen to this. One of the judges initially involved in the Dutroux case, Jean-Claude Van Espen, he was a close associate of Nihoul's, and Jean-Michel Nihoul was also, of course, an informant for the Bigendarmerie Opsprings Brigade, a branch of the Belgian gendarmerie that functioned as rough equivalent to the American FBI. Between this and the fact that many of the witnesses who implicated Nihoul also implicated the involvement of powerful politicians and officials, the Brussels businessman was given an absurdly light sentence, of course, like less than 2 years. Only a few years after his release in 1999, this is crazy, Nihoul himself would tell the German newspaper Der Spiegel in 2001, I control the government. Everyone has compromising dossiers on one another to be used as leverage in the right situation. even offering off the record to provide a videotape of Belgium's King Albert II assaulting a teenage girl for a six-figure sum.
Which that comports.
Fucking
So it was. So I remember, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'd forgotten, because it's kind of hard to keep track. I mean, just in parapolitical world in general, keep track of who made this claim, that claim, this claim, because all of it's backed up by like who said what, and then you have to verify that. So it's like I knew I had just heard the bit from Liebert, what was he, a WNP guy, Westland New Post, that paramilitary organization.
Yep.
He made that claim that he'd seen photos of VDB, Van den Boynants, and Prince Albert at parties with naked women and children, and them naked as well in the photos. But I'd forgotten that there also was the Nihul claim where he was trying to sell photos of Prince Albert.
Oh yeah,
yeah, which is
it's
wild.
crazy.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, both of these, you have one guy who essentially was working for a neo-Nazi organization, Liebert, making this claim. So obviously, people are going to go, oh, we can't trust that. So this is the nature of the game. Then people are going to say, oh, you can't trust Michel Nihul. He's dealing with legal problems. They're going to find these outs for all of them. But,
the Black Baron as well, Baron Benoit de Bonvoisin, right? Him and Van den Boynants, those two specifically tie in Gladio so directly, it's insane, right?
Dude, and then I just, as I've gotten more familiar with learning the story of Dutroux, it just makes me think of so much. Obviously, I don't see it direct. I'm struggling to see who the characters are. It reminds me so much of like things like Elohim, City. Like you think about Latinus, who literally is the guy who made the WNP. Like he's the founder of the WNP, but he was literally acclaimed to be a DIA agent. He was what he supposedly was clicked in with Haig, supposedly for Austin's OnlyFans, $20 from Somnambulism Schism.
Brother.
Thanks for the support for the old Austin bank account. I forgot what my point was. What was it even fucking
sorry,
about?
buddy.
No, you're good. I just lost my train of thought. But no, I don't know, wild shit, just nuts. I remember I was saying it just reminds me of. It makes me think of Elohim City for some reason. It seems like something like, because literally like this guy found it. I mean, it's not as great because
playbook, man.
Yeah, it's sort of because I mean I guess Strassmeyer is kind of the character, but in Elohim, you have Grandpa Millar, who's the one who kind of founded it. I guess you could call it a cult or religion or whatever you're talking about there. And he's kind of the spiritual leader. I think he's got to be dead by now. There's no way he's still alive. But I mean, even later in life, they found out he was an informant for a long time. So I don't know. I mean, was he from the beginning? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I guess even just looking at looking at like somebody like a Strassmeyer is kind of a similar thing. So I don't know. Anyways, let's get back to the thread. I do have some questions for you later in reference to see if it pick your brain to see if you have a good way to explain. But let's keep going. We'll talk about CPIC later. Let's get back to Loof. She can recount seeing Nihul multiple times in her childhood, but one story in particular stands out. Basically, X1 described an unsolved murder case to the quasi-ritualistic killing of another child, Christine Van Hees. Which, by the way, I don't know. I think I had talked to you about this, how I noticed parallels between this and True Detective. We talked about that on Already Dead, I think, yeah. There's a thread that where we covered this thread already, but
was
Mushroom Farm, the Chapon.
Which was the murder that she? I think it was Regina.
The one that you're about to say, where she had all these data points that matched up.
It's just such descriptive.
Yeah.
Okay.
We won't go into the details of that because it gets like pretty in the details. Right. But here's we have already covered this on the show, and here's a thread if someone does want to go check it out. IRC_NIC on Twitter. He's got lots. His pinned tweets are all these threads. He's a super thing. So, the murder took place in an old house near a mushroom farm. Regina described what happened, but also gave incredible details on what was inside the house. So much so that the son of the owner said that Regina had to have been in the house. So, now we have a corroborating claim from the person who lived in the house, saying there's no way anyone could have known this. How's this linked to Dutroux? Regina describes Marc Dutroux, Michel Nihul, and his wife Annie Booty to be all present when the poor Christine is tied up, tortured, and then burned for allegedly being disobedient, wanting to leave this life of abuse. Now, real quick, Annie Booty is also the same broad who was, like, I believe, the financial in charge of finances of the Abraxas Institute or the Celestial Christian Church or something like that, I believe it was also called. And this is the one that was exploiting Nigerian immigrants, promising them if they gave them money, they would help regularize their situation, is what they called
Holy
it.
shit.
Obviously implying that
That's
essentially
so
maybe
crazy.
something like helping them find jobs or housing, stuff like
Right.
that. And then no, nothing. Supposedly there were multiple claims that nothing ever happened. I would say something probably happened for them, especially since it was noted for that area having a problem with young Nigerian prostitutes. And then
Oh
now you have
my
Annie
God.
Booty working for this weird seedy cult,
What the
who's
fuck,
also
man?
the wife of one of the most prominent fucking child prostitute leaders of a child prostitute ring there ever was.
Yeah.
And now you have these Nigerian immigrants coming to this lady asking for help. I don't know. I just connect dots. That's all I'm saying.
Pattern recognition, man. That is insane.
Yeah. I didn't know if you knew that little detail about the Abrasics. I think we talked about it.
I
I'm
did
really
not
kidding you.
remember
Yeah.
that for
No,
for
yeah, that's the
some-
thing.
no,
Apparently,
man.
they were exploiting Nigerian immigrants at part of that church. They were
That is
using and I think that might be part of why they had the two names, because it's like you have this Abrasics, which is more like satanic sounding, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
Celestian Church. It's kind of, if you're a Nigerian immigrant who's probably maybe somewhat familiar in your home country with seeing missionaries here and there, sounds
Yeah.
familiar. Sounds like, oh, these are people that help out. So I don't know. Seems like something weird there. All right. Also keep in mind, this is just one of the many events of abuse recalled by Regina Louf, where Dutroux and Nihul are mentioned. There are others, and some of them we'll get to later. This is just more convenient to talk about first for context. Now, to me, the story establishes the credibility of Louf as a witness and victim of abuse. Whether Dutroux or Nihul were even there is secondary. This isn't about the Dutroux affair anymore. This is about people being able to abuse and kill children in total secrecy, which is what the Dutroux affair effectively hid from the people. There were 6 victims and only one evil monster behind it, Marc Dutroux. All other claims were not related, so they didn't matter. But the same people, places, names, including his and Nihul's, keep popping up. But by now, you must be asking yourself, where does Gladio play a role in all this? We're getting closer.
Oh shit.
These ex-victims, including X1, and will describe being abused by people directly associated with organizations linked to Gladio or its activities in Belgium. During the investigation to X1's claims, she gave directions to the police to places where she was abused, and they used to go on site to see if it was accurate and what she could remember from being there. One time, she mentioned a factory where snuff movies were made. It was a secret snuff movie studio near Zaventem. Once on a drive, she led the investigators there, pointing out the exact place among multiple factories in the industrial park. The factory belonged to ASCO Industries. But who did ASCO belong to? ASCO used to be an arms manufacturer and has since switched to aeronautics, landing contracts with Airbus, Boeing, Lockheed. Wow. ASCO belonged to the Boas family. Their chairman was Roger Boas, a very dear friend of Paul van den Boynens, the former PSC/CPIC Prime Minister of Belgium. Now, I do wonder if this would be also tied into that helicopter affair that we talked about. I don't know if I want to say it was like Argus affair or something like that. It sounds like, because this is an aeronautics. I mean, is that, well, actually, I'm going to look it up because what ASCO is. ASCO, Belgium. Let's see what that is. Because I think that maybe that might be it. That might be ASCO Industries. What does it stand for? I found this. Wait, that's a Montana Aerospace Company. That doesn't seem right. ASCO Belgium, Zaventem. I found it.
Nice.
Okay, well, actually, that is a subsidiary of that larger one that is a Montana Aerospace Company. So it seems like this ASCO is originally
directly ties into these
United
pro-NATO
American,
exclusive clubs. Yeah, basically.
What
That's really what it is.
I want to know what it stands for, because I want to know if the ASCO. Because, there's the one... Man, this is really going to bug me. There's that one fucking... There's that one thing we talked about that was this weird, that ties into all of this. Fuck, it's really bugging me because now I'm like kind of want to know because it's tied into the some of the weird people who died. Some of the let me see, from Andre Cool's the Augusta scandal. So this was Augusta, an Italian helicopter manufacturer. Okay, I guess these are different. They were both just like aeronautic companies, so I wanted to look into to see if there was a connection there. If that ASCO maybe had stood for the Augusta or something. So I'm not seeing that anywhere, and they sound like different things. One's Italian. There's nothing that implies this is Italian. So, all right, let's keep moving. So I just thought maybe there was something, especially because these people were also a lot of these people were involved also with the Augusta scandal, because the Augusta scandal was essentially this, military industrial complex type entity that was paying off politicians in order to land contracts, and that got exposed, and then a bunch of these people died. A bunch of these high elite people died, but then there's implications that somehow these things are all threaded into each other, but it's kind of hard to read from the ground level. All right, let's keep moving.
My God, man.
Yeah, their relationship was so close in '92. Boas got sentenced to 15 months of prison and fined 500,000 Belgian francs for tax evasion and forgery in connection to a defense contract, given to him by Van den Boyenens to deliver 1,000 armored vehicles for 23 billion francs. So he was given a defense contract by Van Boyenens.
Hey, man. This is why you don't trust people with defense contracts. All right,
look at that dude. That dude looks like he eats babies.
100%. Yeah. He was
that guy's like a refined, like he's like a Dracula kind of one. Like he's like kind of, he looks kind of dignified, but yet also dignified, but eats babies. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
like that Dracula vibe. They're like, oh, you look dignified, but I bet you eat people. Like that kind of look. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was never proven in court, but one of the assumptions was that Boas also paid bribes to Van den Boyenens. Roger Boas was also named in a call girl scandal where contracts to build hospitals in Saudi Arabia were gained by using a call girl network. That's a whole different case, but I'll get to explaining on here one day as it ties in with the Brabant killers / Dutroux suspects. So, do you have something on that? Or
it's just par for the course, my friend. Like this is the case that keeps on giving. Like, my God, can we have more examples of how these networks function? Like it's really extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. Those are powerful people, but why does it matter so much? Well, you see, Van den Boyenens was a major reactionary figure in Cold War Belgium, and many of the groups he's affiliated with helped the strategy of tension through attacks like their Brabant killers. He said, I hit thread limit with his tweet, so I'm going to send it out, take a break, and then go on, blah, blah, blah. This is going to be, all right. So this is his breaks point. All right, Van den Boyenens, CPIC, which we mentioned earlier, Central Politique des Independents et Cadres Chrétiens, for those who want to know what it stood for. At first not official, but then a legitimate, established reactionary movement within the PSC Christian Democrats funded Front de la Jeunesse and Nouvelle Europe magazine. So now you have these two magazines that are outcroppings of the CPIC organization. Yep. So you'll see as we go, it's hard to keep track of these things because it literally is like, here's a front of a front of a front, and this is a person who knows a person knows a person. It's hard to keep track of, but it is important.
That Nouvelle Europe magazine was Boyenens would also found. It was a publication that, of course, served as a platform for the organization of fascist paramilitary NEM clubs, right? In the foundation of both the Cercle des Nations and the Nouvelle Europe magazine. Boyenens had a partner in Baron Benoit de Bonvoisin, a.k.a. the Black Baron, another member of the exclusive fraternal organization of powerful influence known as Opus Dei, who would play a vital role in fundraising for Van den Boyenens.
Yeah, Opus Dei is they're like all through it. It's weird. It's really weird. I mean, it's like they're at such a high level that you really can't say too much substantive on it other than that it's there and it's weird. You know what I mean? Like, which kind of makes sense with such a shadowy group playing at such a high level. It would make sense. That's all you can say. But you're like, they're there and it's weird. Like,
it came up a lot in the context of the Pilgrim Society, right? Which again will crop up with the Knights of Malta, like William has been talking about recently. But it's crazy, man. Le Circle is very much embedded within this narrative as well. But anyway, it's crazy, man.
Let's keep moving. Front de la Jeunesse was a fascist paramilitary movement who would go into birth the even more organized and dangerous Westland New Post, or WNP. It was created through NEM clubs, local groups of fascist militants that read NEM, Nouvelle Europe magazine. Wait, so is Front de la Jeunesse, am I misunderstanding it? Funded and okay, was Front de la? I thought that was a publishing company for some reason. Like they published. I mean, maybe it's both. Because I mean, this is what I was talking about earlier. The connection that I wanted to pick your brain to see if you can kind of understand. Like trying to make the connection from. I understand the connection from CPIC to these Front de la Jeunesse and Nouvelle Europe. They're funding them. is an outgroup, like as like their political party. Like I don't know, because but I was understanding that both these were like publishing type entities, like they published literature of some sort.
Yeah.
And then Front de la Jeunesse, somehow out of that came the Westland New Post, which ironically Westland New Post sounds like it'd be a publishing company. It's not.
Yeah.
Like that's actually a literal paramilitary organization, which makes it hard to keep track of what's what. Front de la Jeunesse sounds like it would be some sort of fucking paramilitary organization. Westland New Post sounds like it'd be the publishing house. But it's the other way around. Have you dug into this and really been able to wrap your head around, or is this too niche of a question? The connection from Front de la Jeunesse. How do we get from Front de la Jeunesse to Westland New Post? Because for one, I'm still hazy on what Front de la Jeunesse even is, and then how do we get there from there to Westland New Post? Like is Front de la Jeunesse kind of like a soldier of fortune type thing, along with Nouvelle Europe, and then somehow the funding mechanism birthed the militia movement out of it, or which ends up being the Westland New Post, or do you not know? I mean, if you don't know, it's fine. I'm fine with that answer. I still haven't been able to wrap completely because it's such a knowledge gap, because it's like a different country. Like even trying to understand what the fuck a gendarmerie was took me so long. So but I don't know if you've dug into this enough. So I didn't know if maybe that was something that kind of became clear through your looking to it, or if it's still hazy for you.
Yeah, I mean, the Nouvelle Europe magazine is the main, I think, as far as just like it was the main platform for their publication, I would say, for the platform for the organization of the fascist paramilitary NEM clubs. But it was in 1973 when the Black Baron de Bonvoisin would fund the creation of Front de la Jeunesse, the fascist organization formed out of the NEM clubs, to which he appointed his advisor Francis Desaulniers, I can't remember how to pronounce, as the leader. So yeah, it seems like it came straight out of Nouvelle Europe magazine. This was like the consequence of that, at least like the next step in the facilitation.
Okay, so shit, it's even more. Okay, so it goes. So then the correct way to understand this is CPIC to Nouvelle Europe, and then from Nouvelle Europe to Front de la Jeunesse, and then from Front de la Jeunesse, it further splinters into Westland New Post.
Yeah, exactly. Because
that's
a year later, it is. But this is how it's compartmentalization, right? Yeah. Plausible deniability in many ways, but also at least. But it was.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just trying to understand this again. So CPIC,
go ahead.
Official, on the board, political organization, kind of similar to, I don't know, like a GOP, or I don't know, maybe it's a country with multiple political parties, I would assume. We're one of the few that only has this like two thing. Or we have other parties, but you know what I mean. But I guess you could say it'd almost be like a Green Party or something. And then from there, then we have Nouvelle Europe, which is an entity that they are funding to put out literature, likely somewhat in the realm of things they believe.
Dude, you know what? I think there are two pegs above the beginning of that statement, I think, at this point, now that we can point to. Because especially considering that it was potentially so Paul van den Beinens, former Prime Minister of Belgium, was a member of the notoriously reactionary Catholic organization Opus Dei, vocal supporter of NATO, and in 1969 would be one of the founders of the Cercle des Nations, a right-wing anti-communist and pro-NATO exclusive social club composed of a small number of elites who gave their public support to the dictatorships of Augusto Pinochet, Francisco Franco, and Antonio Salazar. So boom, you get Cercle des Nations has to be the umbrella where all of this began. And then it continues to facilitate into the Dutroux affair through Van den Beinens and the Nouvelle Europe magazine with the NEM clubs, founding the Front de la Jeunesse. That's what it seems like to me.
Okie dokie. So all right,
so it starts
from there,
hey motherfucker,
and then then you get to so I know. So okay, to make it more understandable, I'm going to reiterate this. I know this is nitnoy, but it's also more for my own purposes. So, and I'm just saying it out loud. It's not even. Okay, so we have CPIC. I'm not going to go above CPIC, but we'll start at CPIC. So you have CPIC. Let's say it's something to akin like a Green Party or something. And then from there, you go into Nouvelle Europe, which is some sort of thing. This party is funding some sort of publishing, publishes literature, likely, I would assume, something in the realm of their belief system, whatever the CPIC tends to believe. And then from there, you have, I guess, it's almost like it gets more and more extremist. You find the extremists within each group, and then you kind of almost like a feeder thing. And then from the CPIC to the Nouvelle Europe, which is the funny thing, then it kind of is spreading this idea out there, and this idea kind of attracts some people to start out the Front de la Jeunesse, which is more of a militia, I guess almost like a 3%ers kind of like type thing. Kind of almost the more officially, not fucked up... I mean, maybe it might have a little neo-Nazi edge to it or something. But anyways, the point being is it's kind of this public-facing, kind of semi-friendly, public-facing
And
militia
keep in mind, the
group.
Front de la Jeunesse, the fascist organization formed out of the NEM clubs, was the Van den Benens appointed the advisor Francis de Sonia as the leader. And a year later, in 1974, Ben Voisin would play a key role in funding the Public Information Office, a branch of Belgian military intelligence that worked closely with private intelligence groups and was headed by Jean-Marie Bougerol. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. But it was through those connections Ben Voisin linked mainstream right-wing politicians like Van den Benens to outright fascist paramilitaries, as well as to the world of private intelligence. Boom, there you go. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like that is the framework, right?
Yeah, and real quick to back up, so we have, I don't know, to make it easier. Let's say there's a Nationalist Socialist Party in the world. Like, I don't know, maybe more like a Libertarian Party or something would be more. So you have the CPIC, that's like some sort of political party. From there, then you have the Nouvelle Europe, which is some sort of publishes literature, spreading the word. From there, it was born out of there. Militia movements kind of spread from there. Front de la Jeunesse. And then from there, there's an even further splinter group, which I think the best way to maybe equate it to would be something like an ARA or something. Like a cell movement formed from this larger group. And this is where these serious people who want to form these serious cells and do these, things start to form off of. Obviously, so it would be kind of like the militia movement. And then this is probably not the great. And then from there, you have like the ARA. Not the greatest example, because it kind of conflates the ARA with the militia movement too much. Right. But
they were sending them to just
better way
shoot up
for
grocery stores and shit.
Yeah. I'm just trying to help it so you guys can kind of picture in your head, and so I can picture in my head. So how this entity creates, and from there, the Westland New Post itself was literally created by a spook. So, all right, let's get back into it. I just wanted to take a second for my purposes and for you guys out there. All right, I think we already read this. Front de la, and that's what spurred the conversation. It says that it was a fascist paramilitary movement, Front de la Jeunesse, which would go on to birth the even more organized and dangerous Westland New Post, or WNP. It was created through NEM clubs, local groups of fascist militants that read NEM Nouvelle Europe magazine. Okay, that explained it a little bit too. Westland New Post, infiltrated by Belgian intelligence, was also probably infiltrated or ran by Gladio operatives. Paul Latness, the leader of the movement recruited by the DIA at 17, also said he was taking orders from Alexander Haig, Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, which we talked about yesterday. Here's the thread that we went into. So we went into that yesterday. Here's the Michel Liebert guy I was talking about earlier here. Many of their members are closely associated with the Brabant killers, as they are most likely part of the attacks or the scheme itself. Could they have been a subsidiary of the Gladio operation to destabilize Belgium in the 1980s? And they're sharing to this thread, which goes into Michel Liebert and the Brabant killings and all that. Here's that video we spoke about earlier. This is one of the key organizations that makes you able to link Dutroux/Nihul's network to Gladio operatives. Let's go back to Regina's story about the ASCO factory in Zaventem. When she was driven there to be abused, she claims to have been driven in a special vehicle. X1 describes being driven with dark windows that made it impossible to look inside from the outside, but you could see from the inside. Quickly, the investigators think of the BMWs that Group Diane, an elite gendarmerie unit in Belgium, drove. The investigators' suspicions will also be based on personal notes written by Regina Louf in 1996. In these notes, she describes being raped at gunpoint by a gendarme wearing dark brown sunglasses. She said that man was the driver of the BMW that drove her to that factory. That description matches Madani Bahush, who robbed Group Diane in 1992. Did the ex-gendarme turned gangster play a part in this network? He was a WMP member and is one of the names who pops up whenever possible culprits / masterminds for the Brabant killers are evoked. So this guy's a gendarme and also a member of the WMP. So yeah, this guy is dirty as fuck already. So like, it's not. It's not like they're just like pulling out of thin air. Like here's this dirty guy, or here's this one guy. Here's this one cop, and we just think for no reason whatsoever, aside from he has brown glasses. No, this guy's dirty as shit.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was that's exactly what tied in with as far as like the right wing power network of Van den Beinens and De Bonvoisin. It was clearly tied in directly to the Belgian fascist underground by Madani Buhush because he was one of the key fighting instructors hired by De Bonvoisin to turn the Front de Legiones into an effective fighting force. Of course, like you said, member of Belgian Gendarmerie, who worked as a part of the CIA-trained National Bureau of Drugs, an organization created under the direction of then Prime Minister Paul Van den Beinens and General Leon Francois, and who apparently was a close associate of Michel Nihoul, frequenting many of the same clubs together. During the 1980s, Madani Buhush would be a primary suspect.
Sorry, I don't mean to step on you, but I don't know how. I never clicked in my head, but I just realized Paul Van den Beinens was a prime minister. You just said that. I don't know why.
Prime Minister, yeah.
So he was literally the head of Belgium. So the Van den Beinens. Okay, shit. And then you have the prime. So this is one of the, what?
Yeah, as far as the Michel Nihoul talking about.
You're talking about the king thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah. He was
well, okay. I just wanted to set this out for the audience. So this is one of the countries that has like the kind of the official king thing, kind of like a layover from a previous era, and then it also has like the prime minister as or president, so it has both. Right. So it's one of these countries. Okay,
there's still a Belgian monarchy in place, basically.
Yeah, I'm sure they have some sort of political power in place still. I mean, hell, even the Queen has political power. They just typically, traditionally don't use it. So. But okay, well I don't know how I didn't catch that. So, but he was also like the guy kind of behind CPIC. Like he was the main CPIC dude essentially. I think that was kind of like his party. But okay, shit, I didn't realize he also was a prime minister. I don't know if he was a prime minister at this time, but either way, wild. Okay,
isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Group G, Gendarmerie known as Group G, with intentions of destabilizing the Belgian state and securing power for the far right. That was the goal of Madani Buhush and Gendarmerie officer Marshal Lequeux. He apparently he knew Madani Buhush well, and he claims that they were members of this fascist organization inside of the Gendarmerie known as Group G, and those were their intentions, and that was what was behind the Brabant killings. That's just absolutely insane, man. And they're all like being trained up on these black sites in Belgium as well, right? They're just like getting these recruiting these individuals to train up in these fascist paramilitary organizations to then send them out. That's where like you see the George Soros styled color revolutions being brought into the US for the Black Lives Matter riots, right, at the time. And it's like perfectly in line with these destabilization tactics and techniques that are perfectly in place and being revealed through this network specifically in the years of lead, right, which essentially really falls into place perfectly with that strategy, of destabilization. But it's very interesting how they kind of they use those groups to leverage the public conception, to fit the fucking narrative that's been manufactured. It's problem, reaction, solution, man. In a perfect representation of problem, reaction, solution, and how the state functions in general. So, of course, you have, I just think you have these parallel operations that perfectly align with each other. You know what I mean? And it's just like, wow.
All right, I'm gonna actually put a cap in it here because we're at 2 hours, and I just realized this thread is long as fuck, and we're not moving quickly through it. Now, I don't know what your as I said, I'm not here tomorrow. Not here tomorrow. So if there is one, it'll be you soloing it tomorrow, and then Tuesday I should be available. So if you're able to do Tuesday, I'd prefer to finish this thread out with you because I think this would be good for us to go along, and this is a good thread that kind of So I don't know. We'll plan on me and you coming back and finishing this. Will be part 2 of this thread on Tuesday. This one kind of wraps and goes into everything that we really want to cover within our theme that we're going to anyway. So it kind of works. All right. Well, with that, real quick, I totally forgot to at the jump. So just give a quick shout out to the sponsor. I forgot to pay the bills. Do remind you guys, you can get today's episode is brought to you by Nado Shave Co. If you try that razor burn, irritation, ingrown hairs, this is the way to go. Let me just give you the quick and dirty real quick. This is a better product in the fact that it's going to give you a better shave. It's better for your skin. It's just a one blade as opposed to 5 blades cutting up your face. It's just the one blade coming up your face. A lot smoother. It gives you a smoother shave, and it's better for your face, like I just said. Also, on top of all that, this is it's a cheaper product. It's if you compare it to how expensive those stupid like fusions or the 5 blades, you run that over the course of the years, it's $75 for a whole year. You add that up with all the blades you're going to be buying through that year, it beats you out. Plus, also once you got the razor, you just got to buy re-up with new blades after that. So it's pretty simple, and that's going to last you probably well over a year unless you're someone who shaves every single day. If that is the case, you're going to want the Quarter Save Club. Also, I do remind you, this is a company that doesn't hate your guts. So this is a COVID mandate refusing company. So it kind of supports your values if you're a watcher of the show. And last but not least, you can use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. With that, let's Austin, let them know where they can find you, and we'll get out of here, bud.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, I'll probably end up being here tomorrow because I have plenty to talk about. I definitely pulled up a shitload. I want to go into
I'll be listening.
The bird flu. I have to. I'm excited. But yeah, I view clearly dystopian biometrics are the future of public health. But anyway, other than that, yeah, man, you guys support me at the Underclass Podcast, of course. Check out my most recent episode about Jeffrey McDonald. I don't know what I told you.
It's gonna fucking do numbers. I told you, and you're like, "Oh, I think I should break." I'm like, "No, just release it as is," because it's already done like 1,000 on YouTube, and it's only been like a couple days. It's gonna keep going. It's evergreen too.
Very grateful, grateful, man. But I do also think it's an extraordinary case, and it's like kind of provides an example for many people who are, I guess, unexposed to kind of how really a miscarriage of justice, such as the Jeffrey McDonald case, like how the cover up takes place at the federal level. How key exculpatory evidence is withheld, right from the not only the public and the jury, but like. It's absolutely threatening key witnesses by state prosecutors, threatening key witnesses, and like because they were willing to tell the truth. It's like honestly, it's just one of the most extraordinary examples of just injustice and just honestly, it's really just extraordinary how it ties in with the process as well. But anyway, that alone. Right, like finding John Markham and those crazy connections to his attorneys, like being involved as well with like widespread drug trafficking at the time. It only makes sense. But yeah, so check it out, guys. I worked my ass off on that. It took me a minute. Took me longer than I expected.
You need to take a load off and do a few morning dumps.
My brain feels tired, brother. I'll be honest.
You need to go from the deep dive to the just kind of cutting edge, just quick reaction type stuff. You need to swap 100%. Up the tempo. But with that, guys, if you like what I'm doing over here, you can support me. But let's go through the non-paying way. If you want to support me without chipping in a buck, all you gotta do is like, share, subscribe, comment. Helps out a ton. Boosts up all the stuff in the algos. Do that for both me and Austin. Helps out a ton. Also leave a 5-star review if you're listening on audio. But also with that, if you're on Rumble or YouTube, leave that like. Helps out a ton. Also, if you do want to pay, if you want to be able to support, monetarily, which I definitely would prefer, but it is what it is. I get it. Not everyone can. Patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The lowest level is $2. That's where you get the early access to the episodes, which is I just told you yesterday. I'm upping that up to probably like 2 behind the paywall a week now. And then in the future, once I get enough behind the paywall, I'll start releasing to the public 2 a week as well, too. So as I just mentioned, on Thursday I had Jonathan Franklin and Richard Booth on, talk Oklahoma City bombing. Tonight I'm having on Stephen DeLay to do an analysis of True Detective Season 1 and kind of tying into our parapolitical type world. So I mean, that's going to be the regular going forward. I'm going to shoot for recording 2 of those a week. And for the patrons, you're going to get the perks ahead of time. You'll get those. You're building up a repository before I start releasing too. Also, you can get the ad-free RSS feed, and you can also be a talking head on Already Dead with me and Austin, which is 9:30 on Tuesdays, 9:30 Eastern PM. The highest levels, my sponsors, I read them off every episode. My co-host on Tower Gang, at Tower Gang Toad, also at @EbergateDs, at _Infinite Zeal, Tim Tuttle, at Jolyon Klebold, Will Bells, Delicious Blueberry Rapid Eye Wine, big fan of the show, Torrin May, and then at INWARD Lover. You can follow me on Twitter also at Tower Gang Jose. I forgot to mention that. It's another way to support the show. If you just want to tag me and stuff that you feel like is worthwhile to bring up on the show, hey, that helps. Be my feelers out in the world. Keep your eyes out. Let us know about stories or things that pertain to things we'd be interested in. I am but one, but together we form a mighty faggot. But with that, guys, we're out of here. I love you all.